Mike Johnson may be one of the weakest leaders ever to serve in the U.S. government. And it's not even close. He is Speaker in name only. Not only is his majority fragile and ineffective, but he also appears to function as a loyal extension of Donald Trump, carrying out his wishes no matter the consequences. Throughout his speakership, Johnson has steadily weakened Congress's authority, effectively surrendering its constitutional power to Trump. Now, his latest move could be the most reckless and dangerous yet, shutting down Congress just as the House begins efforts to limit Trump's war powers. Johnson seems determined to shield Trump at all costs. Even as Trump signals he may escalate military action against Iran beyond a single strike. Instead of allowing Congress to assert its constitutional role, Johnson is blocking attempts, including from members of his own party, to rein in those powers. We'll break down the full situation, starting with Trump's recent post on Truth Social, and then examining how Johnson and members of the House, Republicans included, are responding. Trump wrote on Truth Social, Khamenei, one of the most evil people in history, is dead. This is not only justice for the people of Iran, but for all great Americans and those people from many countries throughout the world that have been killed or mutilated by Khamenei or his gang of bloodthirsty thugs. He was unable to avoid our intelligence and highly sophisticated tracking systems and working closely with Israel. There was not a thing he or killed along with him could do. This is the single greatest chance for the Iranian people to take back their country. We are hearing that many of their IRGC military and other security and police forces no longer want to fight and are looking for immunity from us. As I said last night, now they can have immunity. Later, they only get death. Hopefully the IRGC and police will peacefully merge with Iranian patriots and work together as a unit to bring back the country to the greatness it deserves. That process should soon be starting, in that not only the death of Khamenei, but the country has been in the only one day very much destroyed and even obliterated. A word, of course, Donald Trump has used in the past. The heavy and pinpoint bombing, however, will continue uninterrupted throughout the week, or as long as necessary, to achieve our objective of peace throughout the Middle East and indeed the world. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Donald Trump is not acting out of concern for peace. He is not motivated by a commitment to confronting authoritarian regimes, nor does he appear concerned about protecting civil liberties around the world. Many critics argue that he has shown little restraint when it comes to civil liberties at home either. What he seems to be positioning himself for, according to those critics, is a broader expansion of executive power, consolidating authority in a way that strengthens his control and allows him to act with fewer checks. The continued push for military action and the framing of it as a necessary war effort are viewed by opponents as part of that strategy. They argue that the messaging surrounding these actions is political spin designed to justify expanding power. In their view, recent speeches and public statements suggest a focus on centralizing authority rather than limiting it.
Him in from voting in our sacred American elections. We don't want people that aren't citizens of our country voting. We don't want people that aren't studied, and we don't want people that can't love our country voting in our elections. So it's very simple. All voters must show this is the Save America Act. Now think of it. I watched Humor the other.
Very early in this administration, we saw a list of what would categorize one as American or not, holding anti-capitalist ideologies or sympathies, or protesting the government or the police state. These were all things that Donald Trump said he would go after you for, or meant you were un-American. So it wouldn't be surprised that Donald Trump would also want to throw that un-American label on anyone opposing the war effort as the most important concern of our national security. This is a broader operation to, I don't know, Marco Rubio be able to say, your visa or your visa is being revoked, or if you're a citizen, how about this? How about your passport? Which we've now said you only can use to vote. It's the only thing you can use to vote. We're going to get rid of that. This is a broader plan that has so much more to do than the spin that Donald Trump is currently putting on his public perception of this undertaking, which is why Thomas Massie is moving forward along with Rowana and other Democrats and Republicans to stop what Donald Trump is doing. And it's why Mike Johnson is ultimately responding. Thomas Massie, immediately after Donald Trump's bombing began, wrote, "I am opposed to this war. This is not America first. When Congress reconvenes, I will work with Representative Rowana to force a congressional vote on war with Iran. The Constitution requires a vote, and your representatives need to be on record as opposing or supporting this war. However, new war powers vote math may be getting away from House Dem leadership and Thomas Massie, because Democrats, even though we can barely call them that, Gottheimer, Landsman, and Moskowitz have all said and indicated that they're opposed, of course, as well as John Fetterman in the Senate. Another House Dem told Axios they will be a no as well. But this isn't the biggest impediment to the War Powers Act, because Mike Johnson has literally been shutting down Congress to stop it from passing.
Our Speaker, the Speaker of the House, Mr. Johnson, has done everything he can to prevent us from having that kind of a vote. He canceled votes on Friday, he canceled votes on Tuesday, he canceled votes this coming Friday, and I think that's all in an attempt to undermine the power of Congress, to make sure that Congress has that authority. We can't do that if we're not physically present. And so I think that he is absolutely complicit in this neutering of the United States Congress, and I'm hopeful that we have the chance to take that vote.
Mike Johnson is canceling votes and effectively sidelining the House, a move critics argue is meant to give Donald Trump as much freedom as possible to continue his military campaign. From their perspective, this administration has focused from the start on expanding executive and military authority, concentrating more power in Trump's hands. Opponents believe Trump wants Americans to see every branch of government, from the Justice Department to the military, as operating in service of his agenda. They argue that emergency powers and national security justifications could be used to bypass meaningful congressional oversight, especially if House leadership prevents votes that would limit those actions. Some Democrats stress that while constitutional process matters, the bigger issue is the substance. They view the war effort as reckless, dangerous, and politically unpopular. Their focus, they argue, should be on preventing prolonged conflict and protecting Americans, particularly working-class service members who could be sent into extended military action. At the same time, divisions within Congress are becoming more visible. Lawmakers across both parties have offered cautious or non-committal responses when pressed about the war effort. Others have openly supported continued action, raising questions among critics about political alliances and influence. Ultimately, critics see this as part of a broader struggle over executive power, whether authority remains balanced through Congress or becomes increasingly centralized in the presidency.
What's your take on what the president is trying to achieve with this war?
Yeah, well, here we go again. You know, as you just pointed out, I learned about this when I woke up and opened up my phone and looked at Twitter, right, which has its own set of problems, the fact that Congress wasn't engaged and involved. But listen, my statement, I think, captures the sentiment of tens of millions of working class Americans who have seen 20 years of endless conflict, trillions of dollars spent, thousands of American lives. And you know who wins? The defense companies win, the oil companies win, the elites and the billionaires win, and the working class folks that I grew up with, that I went to war with, we're left holding the bag. And this is the same thing. right, over and over again. And how magnanimous of Donald Trump to get up there last night and say, you know, tough stuff happens in war, and maybe there are going to be some Americans that will die, but that's a cost I'm willing to take. Really? That's a cost he's willing to take? Because last time I checked, it wasn't him or his kids or his donors' kids or the other elites in the White House that are having to jump into planes or pick up rifles or are sitting here in military bases around the Middle East being bombed right now. They shift that burden onto the rest of us.
Strategically, the question that emerged from the debacles of the Iraq and Afghanistan war, the most potent questions that were never able to be answered by any U.S. government, by any U.S. president was, how does this end? Strategically, do you understand how this ends, what the United States is both trying to do and whether what they're doing gets us anywhere closer to those aims?
Of course I don't, right? I mean, the rationale for this changes by the hour, right? And sometimes in the same speech, they give different rationale. It's going to prevent them from having a nuclear weapon. It's regime change. It's to protect Americans against some unnamed, undefined imminent threat that, you know, by the way, as a member of the Intelligence and Armed Services Committee, I'm not aware of, and they haven't briefed us on. So will the real rationale for this please stand up? But we can talk all we want about notification and debating and war powers and resolutions. And I think a lot of Americans just kind of get, glazed eyes when they talk about the procedure. Here's why the procedure and that stuff is important to me as somebody who went and had to fight these wars in the past. It's about accountability. There has to be an accountability loop here. And the reason why we went to war, I think, for 20 years in Iraq and Afghanistan is because we stopped taking votes on it. We stopped debating it. The trillions of dollars that we spent was largely debt financing. Nobody was held accountable.
This is the message Democrats should be repeating everywhere, without hesitation and without watered-down language. No more lukewarm statements, no more carefully worded half-criticisms, and no pretending that this is just politics as usual. In this view, Donald Trump is not motivated by policy disagreements or simple partisanship. It's about consolidating power and expanding executive control in ways critics see as authoritarian. That's the central issue, and it should be the focus. That's the position we'll continue to discuss and emphasize here, even while on the road. We're going to keep calling it out directly. If you support that, be sure to subscribe, leave a like. And if you made it to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I will see you soon.